When my daughter Sarah called me at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, I knew something was wrong. But I never expected what came next. Dad, I need you to wire me $5,000 by tomorrow morning. It's an emergency. No greeting, no explanation, just a demand wrapped in urgency. I sat up in bed, my reading glasses still perched on my nose, the book I'd been enjoying now forgotten. Sarah, what kind of emergency? Are you hurt? Is Emma okay? Emma was my 6-year-old granddaughter, the light of my life. Dad, I don't have time to explain everything. Just trust me. I need the money. Her voice had that edge it got when she was about to lose her temper, that tone that had trained me over the years to simply comply without questions. I had heard that tone hundreds of times in the 8 years since my wife Margaret had passed away. It was the tone that preceded late-night bank transfers, emergency loans that were never repaid, and crises that somehow always required my immediate financial intervention. Sarah, I need to understand what this is for before I can forget it. I'll figure it out myself. I should have known better than to ask you for help when I actually need it. The line went dead. I stared at my phone in the darkness of my bedroom, feeling that familiar knot of anxiety and guilt forming in my stomach. Within minutes, the text messages started flooding in. From Sarah, from her husband Kevin, even from Kevin's mother, Patricia, whom I barely knew. Your daughter is in trouble and you're too selfish to help her. What kind of father turns his back on his own child? We always knew you cared more about your money than your family. I turned off my phone and tried to sleep, but rest wouldn't come. Instead, I lay there, remembering how I'd gotten to this point, replaying the 8 years since Margaret's death like a movie I'd seen too many times. Margaret and I had worked our entire lives. I was a civil engineer for the city, and she was a high school mathematics teacher. We lived modestly, saved diligently, and planned carefully for retirement. When she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at 58, we faced it together with the same pragmatic determination we'd brought to everything else in our lives. She fought for 2 years, and in those 2 years, Sarah barely visited. She was busy with her new marriage to Kevin, busy with their social life, busy with everything except her dying mother. Margaret never complained, always making excuses for Sarah's absence. She's young, Robert. She needs to live her life. But I saw the hurt in Margaret's eyes every time Sarah canceled a visit or cut a phone call short because she had plans. I saw how my wife would lie in her hospital bed, checking her phone, hoping for a message that rarely came. When Margaret died, I was 60 years old and suddenly alone in a house full of memories. Sarah arrived for the funeral with Kevin, stayed for 3 days, and then vanished back into her life. I buried my grief in work, counting down the days until my retirement at 62. 6 months after Margaret's funeral, Sarah announced she was pregnant. For the first time since losing my wife, I felt hope, a grandchild, a new generation, a chance to be needed again. Emma was born, and she was perfect. Tiny fingers, curious eyes, and a smile that reminded me so much of Margaret it made my chest ache. I visited the hospital, held my granddaughter, and promised her silently that I would always be there for her. That promise became a chain. It started innocently enough. Sarah and Kevin had bought a house that was slightly beyond their means. Just help us with the down payment, Dad. We'll pay you back. $15,000 from my retirement savings. I never saw a penny returned. Then came the furniture. The house is so empty, Dad. We need basics. Just loan us $8,000. Another withdrawal from the nest egg Margaret and I had built over 30 years. When Emma was 6 months old, Sarah quit her job as a marketing coordinator. Daycare costs more than I make, Dad. It makes more sense for me to stay home. I understood the logic, but I also noticed that Kevin's income as a sales manager should have been sufficient for a family of 3, yet somehow it never was. The requests became a pattern. The car needed repairs, $2,500. Emma needed a better crib, better clothes, better toys, $1,200. Their heating system broke, $4,000. Kevin's car was repossessed and they needed help buying a used one, $12,000. Every few months, there was a new crisis, a new emergency, a new reason why they needed my help. And every time, I helped. Because Sarah was my daughter. Because Emma was my granddaughter. Because I couldn't bear the thought of them struggling when I had the means to help. By the time Emma turned 4, I had given them over $75,000. $75,000 from the retirement fund Margaret and I had built together. Money we'd planned to use for travel, for hobbies, for the golden years we never got to share. But I told myself it was okay. I was helping my family. That's what fathers do. That's what grandfathers do. I was wrong. The breaking point didn't come with that midnight phone call demanding $5,000. It had actually begun 2 weeks earlier, though I didn't recognize it at the time. I had called Sarah on a Thursday afternoon to ask if I could take Emma to the Children's Museum on Saturday. My granddaughter loved the dinosaur exhibit, and there was a new interactive display I thought she'd enjoy. "Dad, we already have plans this weekend," Sarah said, her tone distracted. I could hear her typing on her computer in the background. "Oh, that's fine. What about next weekend?" "We're busy then, too." "Okay, well, just let me know when would be good. I miss spending time with Emma." "Dad, you need to understand that we have our own lives. You can't just expect us to drop everything whenever you want to see Emma. We have activities, commitments, things we're doing." Her words stung, but I swallowed my hurt. "Of course, Sarah, I understand. Just let me know when it's convenient." "I will. Listen, I have to go. I'll call you later." She didn't call later. She never called unless she needed something. 3 days after that conversation, I was scrolling through social media, something I rarely did, when I saw Sarah's post. It was a photo album from Emma's 4th birthday party, which had apparently happened the previous weekend. The photos showed at least 30 people at a lavish celebration in a rented event space. There was a bounce house, a face painter, a magician, and an elaborate princess-themed cake that must have cost hundreds of dollars. Emma beamed in a designer dress I'd never seen, surrounded by balloons and presents. I wasn't invited. I hadn't even known about the party. I sat in my living room staring at those photos, feeling something crack inside my chest. This was my only grandchild, and I had missed her birthday party. I had missed watching her blow out the candles, opening presents, laughing with her friends. I scrolled through the comments. Kevin's parents were there. His siblings were there. Sarah's college friends were there. Distant relatives I barely knew were there. But not me, her father, the man who had given them $75,000 over 4 years. The man who had stood by Sarah when her mother was dying, who held her hand at Margaret's funeral, who supported her through every crisis, real or imagined. I wasn't special enough to be invited to my own granddaughter's birthday party. I called Sarah immediately, my hands shaking as I held the phone. "Dad, hi, I was going to call you. I saw the photos from Emma's party." Silence. Then, "Oh, right, Dad, about that. Why wasn't I invited, Sarah?" "It was really last minute and we had limited space at the venue and I didn't think you'd want to deal with all the chaos and noise." Those are excuses, not reasons. Why wasn't I invited to my granddaughter's birthday party? Her tone shifted, becoming defensive. "Dad, honestly, you're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be. It was just a kid's party. Emma didn't even notice you weren't there. Those words, Emma didn't even notice you weren't there. They echoed in my head, each syllable a small knife. I would have noticed, I said quietly. I wanted to be there. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Look, I really have to go. We can talk about this later. Sarah. The line went dead.
James, I need to tell you something. And I need your honest opinion. I told him everything. Every dollar, every missed event, every manipulation. James listened, and when I finished, there was a long silence. Bobby, he finally said, using the childhood nickname he'd abandoned decades ago, I'm going to say something you might not want to hear. I saw this happening years ago, when Margaret was sick and Sarah barely visited, when you retired and immediately started funding their life. I wanted to say something, but Margaret asked me not to. She said you needed to feel useful after losing her, and helping Sarah was how you coped. I felt tears prick my eyes. Margaret knew? She knew you were giving the money. She didn't know how much, but she was worried about you. She made me promise that after she was gone, I'd keep an eye on you. I failed that promise, Bobby. I let you isolate yourself. Let Sarah take advantage of you. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, James. Maybe not, but I should have said something. So, I'm saying it now. You did the right thing. Cut them off. Protect yourself. And come visit me in Colorado. You've been putting it off for years. It's time. I'd like that, I said. And I meant it. 2 weeks after I cut off Sarah's access to my money, the first legal letter arrived. It was from a law firm called Henderson and Associates, and it informed me that my daughter and son-in-law were concerned about my mental well-being and were exploring options to ensure my safety and proper care. I called Bill immediately. It's intimidation, he said after reading the letter over the phone. They're hoping you'll cave before they actually have to file anything. Don't respond to it directly. I'll handle all communication from now on. The second letter arrived 3 days later, this time demanding I return all funds borrowed in good faith by Sarah and Kevin. They claimed every dollar I'd given them had been a loan, not a gift, and they were requesting a repayment plan. Bill laughed when I showed him this one. Robert, do you have any documentation that these were loans? Promissory notes, repayment agreements, anything in writing? No, because they weren't loans, they were gifts. Sarah always said she'd pay me back, but we both knew she wouldn't. Then they have no case. This is another intimidation tactic. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. But the intimidation was working in a way they didn't intend. Instead of making me cave, it was crystallizing my resolve. Every threatening letter, every attempt to manipulate me through lawyers, every message from Patricia about how I was abandoning my family, all of it just confirmed I had made the right decision. Then came the day Sarah showed up at my house unannounced. I was in my garden, something I had started doing more of since reclaiming my time. I'd always loved gardening, but for years I'd let the yard go because I was always too busy running to the bank or waiting by the phone for the next emergency. Now, my roses were blooming, my tomatoes were thriving, and I was finding peace in the simple act of nurturing something that actually appreciated the care I gave it. I heard the car before I saw it. Sarah's silver SUV, the one I'd helped them buy when Kevin's car was repossessed, pulled into my driveway. Sarah got out, and behind her, Emma climbed out of the back seat. My heart lurched. Emma, my beautiful granddaughter, who I hadn't seen in nearly a month. Sarah walked toward me with purpose, her face set in determined lines. Emma ran ahead, calling, "Grandpa!" with the unself-conscious joy of childhood. I caught her in my arms, feeling her small body against mine, smelling her strawberry shampoo, and I had to fight back tears. "Hey, sweetheart,
I said, my voice rough. "I've missed you so much." "I missed you too, Grandpa. Mommy said you were sick. Are you better now?" I looked over Emma's head at Sarah, who had the decency to look slightly ashamed. "I'm not sick, honey. I'm perfectly healthy." "Sarah," I said, setting Emma down gently, "what are you doing here?" "We need to talk, Dad. Privately." She glanced meaningfully at Emma. I considered sending Emma inside with a snack, but something stopped me. "Emma, honey, why don't you go see if you can find any ripe strawberries in the garden? The patch is over there by the fence." Emma ran off happily, and I turned to face my daughter. "Dad, this has gone on long enough," Sarah said without preamble. "I understand you were upset about the birthday party thing. I apologize for that. But you're taking it way too far. Cutting us off completely? Blocking our numbers? Sending lawyers after us?" "I haven't sent lawyers after you, Sarah. You sent lawyers after me. Because you're acting crazy. You've changed all your passwords, locked us out of your accounts, and now you're telling people we've been taking advantage of you. Do you know how humiliating that is? Do you know how humiliating it was to discover I wasn't invited to my own granddaughter's birthday party? To realize that I'm only valuable to you when I'm handing over money? That's not fair, Dad. We love you. Emma loves you. Does she? Or does she just know me as the grandfather who gives her expensive presents? When was the last time we spent real time together, Sarah? When was the last time you called me just to talk, not because you needed money? You're twisting everything. Yes, we've needed financial help. You're our family. That's what families do. They help each other. Help is reciprocal, Sarah. Help flows both ways. What have you done to help me in the past 4 years, besides take my money? We let you be part of Emma's life. The words hung in the air between us, stark and revealing. "Let me?" I said quietly. "Let me be part of my granddaughter's life? As if it's a privilege you grant rather than a relationship I have a right to? Dad, you know what I mean. I know exactly what you mean. And that's the problem." I took a deep breath. "Sarah, I love you. You're my daughter, and that will never change. But I don't like the person you've become. I don't like how you treat me, and I won't continue to enable financial irresponsibility while being treated as if I'm nothing more than a convenient ATM. So what? You're just going to cut us off? Let us lose our house? Let Emma suffer because you're having some kind of midlife crisis at 68? You're not going to lose your house, Sarah. Kevin makes a good salary. You could get a job. You're 36 years old with a degree in marketing. You're not helpless. You're just comfortable living beyond your means because I've always been there to bail you out. We can't survive without your help, Dad. That's the reality. Then you need to make changes. Downsize, budget, live within your actual means instead of the inflated lifestyle you've created on my retirement fund." Sarah's face flushed red. "I can't believe you're doing this. Mom would never—" "Don't." My voice came out sharp. "Don't you dare invoke your mother's name to manipulate me. Your mother, who died asking for you, who spent her last months making excuses for why you were too busy to visit. Your mother, who would be heartbroken to see what our relationship has become." For a moment, Sarah looked stricken. Then her expression hardened. "Fine, if that's how you want it. But don't expect to see Emma again. If you won't help your family, you don't get to be part of this family." She called for Emma, who came running from the strawberry patch with dirt on her hands and joy on her face. "Say goodbye to Grandpa, Emma. We're leaving." "But Mommy, I just got here. I want to stay and play." "Now, Emma." I knelt down and hugged my granddaughter, memorizing the feel of her small arms around my neck. "I love you, sweetheart. always remember that Grandpa loves you." "I love you too, Grandpa. Will I see you next weekend?" I looked up at Sarah, who was staring at me with cold calculation. She was using Emma as a weapon, and we both knew it. "I hope so, honey. I really hope so." I watched them drive away, Emma waving from the back window until they turned the corner and disappeared from sight. And then I went inside, sat at my kitchen table, and allowed myself to cry for the first time since Margaret's funeral. The lawsuit arrived 2 weeks later. Sarah and Kevin were petitioning the court to have me declared mentally incompetent and to appoint Sarah as my legal guardian and conservator. The petition claimed I was exhibiting signs of dementia, paranoid delusions, and inability to manage my financial affairs responsibly. Bill called me as soon as he received the notice. "Robert, I need you to stay calm. We knew this was a possibility, and we're prepared for it." They're really doing this. They're really trying to take control of my money. Not just your money. If they win guardianship, they control everything. Where you live, what medical care you receive, who you're allowed to see. It's not just financial control. It's total control. The weight of that reality settled over me. My own daughter was trying to strip me of my autonomy, my freedom, my basic rights as an adult human being, all because I had stopped giving her money. "What do we do?" I asked. "We fight and we win. I've already scheduled depositions with everyone they're planning to call as witnesses. We have Dr. Chen's evaluation. We have your financial records showing completely sound decision-making. We have testimony lined up from your friends and colleagues. They're going to claim you've isolated yourself and are being manipulated. So we're going to show the court that you have a full, active, healthy social life." "But I don't," I admitted. "I've spent the last 8 years isolated because I was always available for their emergencies." "Then we change that. Starting now. You're going to join clubs, make friends, create a visible social network. We have 3 months before the hearing. That's enough time to establish a clear pattern of social engagement and mental competence." So that's what I did. I joined the hiking club I'd been putting off for years. I started attending a weekly book club at the local library. I volunteered at the community garden. I reconnected with old colleagues from my engineering days. And something remarkable happened. I started to enjoy my life. I met people who valued my company, not my wallet. I had conversations about books, politics, hiking trails, and gardening techniques. I laughed more in those 3 months than I had in the 8 years since Margaret died. I also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Raymond Howell, not because I needed to prove my sanity, but because I realized I had 8 years of grief, guilt, and manipulation to unpack. "Robert," Dr. Howell said during our 4th session, "you've been carrying an enormous burden of misplaced guilt. You feel responsible for Sarah's happiness, for her financial security, even for her choices. But she's an adult. Her life is her responsibility, not yours. I know that intellectually, but emotionally, I keep feeling like I'm abandoning her, like I'm failing as a father." Let me ask you this. What did Sarah do to earn your financial support? What actions did she take that demonstrated she valued you as a person, not just as a source of money? I couldn't answer. Because there was no answer. "You've confused love with financial support," Dr. Howell continued gently. "You thought if you gave enough money, provided enough help, sacrificed enough of your own needs, she would eventually recognize your worth and reciprocate that love. But love doesn't work that way. You can't buy it, earn it, or sacrifice your way into receiving it." Those sessions with Dr. Howell were painful but necessary. I was learning to separate my identity as a father from my role as a financial provider.
I was learning that setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was self-preservation. The court hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in September. I arrived at the courthouse with Bill at 8:30 a.m., dressed in my best suit, armed with 3 months of documentation proving my mental competence and social engagement. Sarah and Kevin were already there with their attorney, Marcus Henderson from Henderson and Associates. Patricia was there too, looking like she was attending a funeral. They sat on one side of the courtroom, occasionally glancing at me with expressions ranging from anger to determination. The judge was Honored Janet Morrison, a woman in her early 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for not tolerating nonsense. Bill had researched her thoroughly. She's seen every trick in the book when it comes to family exploitation, he told me. She won't be easily fooled. The hearing began with Henderson presenting his case. He painted a picture of a once generous father who had suddenly become paranoid, isolated, and irrational. He claimed I had cut off my own family without reason, changed all my security measures in a fit of paranoid delusion, and was potentially being manipulated by new friends and my attorney. "Your Honor," Henderson said, in a voice dripping with false concern, "Mr. Donovan's sudden personality change is deeply troubling. His own daughter barely recognizes him. He's gone from a loving, supportive father to someone who refuses contact with his only grandchild. This is textbook cognitive decline." Then Sarah took the stand. She looked the part of the concerned daughter, conservative dress, worried expression, tissues in hand. "Miss Donovan," Henderson began, "can you describe your father's behavior before this sudden change?" "He was wonderful. He was always there for us. After my mom died, he really threw himself into being a supportive father and grandfather. He loved helping us, loved being involved in Emma's life." "And when did you first notice the change?" "About 4 months ago. He suddenly became paranoid that we were taking advantage of him. He started accusing us of only caring about his money. It was completely out of nowhere." "Did he provide any rational explanation for cutting off contact?" "No. He just said he wasn't going to help us anymore and blocked our numbers. We tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. We even went to his house to check on him, and he threatened to call the police. That's when we knew something was really wrong." Bill's cross-examination was methodical and devastating. "Miss Donovan, you mentioned your father loved being involved in your daughter Emma's life. Was he invited to Emma's 4th birthday party?" Sarah hesitated. "That was a misunderstanding. Please answer yes or no. Was Robert Donovan invited to his granddaughter's 4th birthday party?" "No, but—" "And why wasn't he invited?" "It was limited space, last-minute planning. Yet you had space for approximately 30 guests, including extended family and friends, correct?" "I suppose—"
Before your father suddenly became paranoid, as you described it, how much money had he given you and your husband over the preceding 4 years? "I don't know the exact amount." Bill produced a document. "I have a detailed accounting here. Would it surprise you to learn the total was $78,400? Sarah's composure cracked slightly. "My father was generous. And how much of that $78,400 have you repaid?" "It wasn't loans, it was help." "So you considered $78,400 to be gifts, not loans. Yet in your attorney's letter from June 15th, Bill produced another document, you claimed these were funds borrowed in good faith and demanded a repayment plan from your father. Which is it, Miss Donovan? Gifts or loans?" "We were advised to say that." "By your attorney? So you're willing to make false, legal claims to try to regain access to your father's money?" Henderson objected, but the damage was done. Bill continued,
When was the last time you called your father without asking for money? Sarah couldn't answer. When was the last time you invited him to a family event? Silence. When was the last time you visited him just to spend time together, not to request financial assistance? You're making it sound worse than it is, Sarah said, tears flowing now. We love my father. We're just worried about him. Are you worried about him, or are you worried about losing access to his retirement fund? Kevin's testimony was even worse for their case. He was defensive, aggressive, and clearly resentful. When Bill asked him about his employment history, it came out that he'd been fired from 2 jobs in the past 4 years for poor performance and had been relying on my financial support to maintain a lifestyle his actual income couldn't sustain. Then Bill called his witnesses. Dr. Chen testified about my cognitive evaluation, presenting a report that made it abundantly clear I was not only mentally competent, but functioning at an exceptional level for my age. Mr. Donovan scored in the 95th percentile for his age group in all cognitive assessments. His memory, reasoning, and executive function are all excellent. There is absolutely no evidence of dementia, cognitive decline, or impaired decision-making ability. Henderson tried to shake her testimony on cross-examination. But, doctor, isn't it possible for someone with early-stage dementia to perform well on tests? It's possible, but highly unlikely to perform this well. And Mr. Donovan showed no signs of the behavioral markers we typically see in early cognitive decline. No confusion, no memory lapses, no difficulty with complex tasks or abstract reasoning. What about his sudden personality change? His daughter testified that he became paranoid and isolated. Dr. Chen smiled slightly. Mr. Henderson, setting healthy boundaries after years of being financially exploited isn't paranoia. It's rational self-protection. And Mr. Donovan is far from isolated. He has an active social life, engages in multiple community activities, and maintains healthy relationships. What he stopped doing was allowing himself to be manipulated. That's not a symptom of decline, it's a symptom of growth. Next came testimony from Tom Patterson, my financial advisor, who presented my complete financial records. Your Honor, Tom testified, I've managed Mr. Donovan's finances for 15 years. Every decision he's made since cutting off support to his daughter has been completely sound. He's diversified his investments, set up a trust for his granddaughter, and is planning for his own long-term care. These are the actions of someone with full mental capacity who is thinking clearly about his future. Then Bill called members from my hiking club, my book club, and the community garden. Each one testified about my engagement, my mental acuity, and my social connections. One woman, Helen Martinez from the book club, was particularly effective. I've known Robert for 3 months, and I can tell you he's one of the sharpest people in our group. He reads complex literary fiction, engages in sophisticated discussions about themes and symbolism, and never forgets details from previous meetings. If that man has dementia, I'd like to know his secret. When Henderson tried to suggest I might be manipulating these people or they might be manipulating me, Helen actually laughed. Sir, I'm a retired psychologist. I spent 40 years working with patients, including many with dementia. I know what cognitive decline looks like. Robert Donovan doesn't have it. My brother James flew in from Colorado to testify. His testimony was perhaps the most damaging to Sarah's case. I've known my brother for 68 years. I watched him build a life with his wife, raise his daughter, and deal with grief after Margaret's death.
For the past 8 years, I watched Sarah systematically drain his retirement fund while barely acknowledging his existence unless she needed money. When Robert finally set boundaries, that wasn't mental illness, that was self-preservation, and frankly, it was about time. But his sudden change in behavior, Henderson began, wasn't sudden at all. It was the culmination of years of one-sided support. The catalyst was being excluded from his granddaughter's birthday party. But the foundation had been cracking for years. Sarah just didn't notice because she was too busy cashing his checks. Finally, Bill called me to the stand. I was nervous, but Dr. Howell had prepared me well. Mr. Donovan, Bill began, can you explain in your own words why you made the decision to stop financial support to your daughter and son-in-law? I took a deep breath and looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, for 8 years after my wife died, I poured myself into helping my daughter. I gave them over $78,000 because I thought that's what love looked like. I thought if I was useful enough, generous enough, supportive enough, I would have a real relationship with my daughter and my granddaughter. But I was excluded from my granddaughter's 4th birthday party. I wasn't invited to celebrate one of the most important milestones in a young child's life. And when I saw those photos on social media, saw all the other people who were there, I realized I had never been family to them. I had been a bank account. So I stopped. Not because I'm mentally ill, but because I finally understood that what I was doing wasn't helping them. It was enabling poor financial decisions and teaching my granddaughter that love can be bought. I want a real relationship with my daughter and my granddaughter, but I won't have a transactional one anymore. The courtroom was silent. I saw Sarah crying, her shoulders shaking. For a moment, I felt that old familiar pull to comfort her, to take it all back, to make everything okay. But then I remembered Dr. Howell's words, "You can't sacrifice yourself to being loved." Judge Morrison called a 30-minute recess. Bill and I waited in a small conference room. You did well, very well.
I feel sick, I admitted. This is my daughter, my only child. I know, but remember why we're here. She's trying to take away your legal autonomy, Robert. If she wins, you lose everything. Your freedom, your independence, your right to make your own decisions. When we returned to the courtroom, Judge Morrison's expression was stern. I've presided over many guardianship cases, she began, and I've seen families torn apart by money, by illness, by misunderstandings. This case, however, is one of the more clear-cut situations I've encountered. Ms. Donovan and Mr. Schuster have presented no credible medical evidence that Robert Donovan is mentally incompetent. The only evidence they've provided is that he stopped giving them money and set reasonable boundaries to protect himself from financial exploitation. Dr. Chen's evaluation is thorough and conclusive. Mr. Donovan's cognitive function is excellent. His financial decisions are sound. His social engagement is healthy. The testimony from his friends and family members, excluding those with a financial interest in the outcome, all support the conclusion that he is not only competent, but thriving. What I see here is an adult child who has become accustomed to a lifestyle funded by her father's retirement savings and who is now using the court system to try to regain access to those funds. This is exactly the kind of elder financial abuse that guardianship laws are meant to prevent, not enable. The petition for guardianship is denied. Furthermore, I am issuing a restraining order preventing Ms. Donovan and Mr. Schuster from contacting Mr. Donovan except through their respective attorneys. Any violation of this order will result in contempt charges. Mr. Donovan, you have every right to determine how you spend your money and who you allow in your life. The court finds you fully competent to make those decisions. This case
is closed." The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom. I felt Bill's hand on my shoulder, heard him saying something about it being over, but I was watching Sarah. She sat frozen for a moment, then turned to look at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and I saw something in her face I hadn't seen in 8 years. Recognition that she had gone too far. But it was too late for recognition, too late for apologies. She had tried to strip me of my freedom, my autonomy, my basic human rights. There was no coming back from that. The weeks after the hearing were strange. I felt simultaneously liberated and grieving. I had won my freedom, but I had lost my daughter. Or perhaps more accurately, I had lost the illusion that I'd ever really had her. Dr. Howell helped me process the complicated emotions. You can grieve the relationship you wish you'd had while also recognizing that it never actually existed, he explained. Both things can be true. I threw myself into my new life. The hiking club organized a trip to the mountains, and I found myself standing on a peak, looking out at the vast wilderness, feeling more alive than I had in years. I was not useful to anyone in that moment. I was not providing value or support or financial assistance. I was simply existing, breathing, being, and it was enough. Helen from the book club became a close friend. She was a widow too, and we understood each other's grief in a way that didn't require explanation. We started having coffee every Thursday morning, talking about books and life and the complicated relationships we had with our adult children. "My son barely speaks to me," Helen confessed one morning. "When I stopped loaning him money, he said I was choosing money over family. But I wasn't choosing money. I was choosing self-respect." "Do you regret it?" I asked. "Every day," she said honestly, "but I also know I did the right thing. Sometimes the right thing hurts." James visited again in October, this time bringing his wife Carol. We spent a week hiking, talking, and reconnecting. "I'm proud of you, Bobby," James said one evening as we sat on my back deck watching the sunset. "Mom and Dad would be proud too. You stood up for yourself. That takes courage." "I lost my daughter in the process." "Did you? Or did you just stop pretending you had a relationship that didn't really exist?" I didn't have an answer for that. The letter arrived in early November, 6 weeks after the hearing. It was handwritten on simple stationery, addressed in handwriting I recognized immediately as Sarah's. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. "Dear Dad, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if I deserve for you to read this, but I need to write it anyway. The judge was right. You were right. I have been using you, and I didn't even fully realize I was doing it until I heard myself testifying in that courtroom. I listened to my own words, heard the explanations I was giving, and I suddenly saw myself from the outside. I didn't recognize the person I'd become. I want to say it started after Mom died, that grief made me selfish and blind, but that would be a lie. It started before that. When Mom was sick and I was too scared to face her dying, I chose avoidance over support. I chose my own comfort over being there for both of you. And after Mom died, I think I just kept choosing my own comfort over everything else. You gave me everything, and I took it all without ever asking what you needed. I took your money, your time, your love, and I never gave anything back. I excluded you from Emma's birthday because Kevin's parents had offered to pay for the party if we kept it small, and I chose their money over your presence. I made a financial calculation where you should have been priceless. Trying to have you declared incompetent was unforgivable. I know that. Kevin and I were desperate. We're drowning in debt that we created by living beyond our means on your support. When you cut us off, reality hit hard. Instead of dealing with it like adults, we tried to take control of your life. We tried to make you the problem instead of facing our own failures. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to give me another chance. I'm writing this because you deserve to know that I finally understand what I did. I finally see who I became, and I'm ashamed. I've gotten a job. Kevin has gotten a second job. We've sold the house and moved to a smaller apartment. We're living on an actual budget for the first time in our marriage. It's hard, but it's also clarifying. We're learning to get adults. Emma asks about you constantly. I tell her Grandpa is busy, but she's smart enough to know something is wrong. I don't know what to tell her. How do I explain that I destroyed our family because I was too selfish and immature to value you properly? I understand about the restraining order. I won't try to contact you again after this letter, but I wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did. I finally see who I became, and I'm ashamed. I hope you're happy, Dad. I hope you're living the life you deserve, surrounded by people who value you for who you are, not for what you can give them. You deserve that. You always did. With love and regret, Sarah. I read the letter 3 times, sitting at my kitchen table with tears streaming down my face. It was everything I'd wanted to hear for 8 years. An acknowledgement, an apology, recognition of the pain she'd caused. But it was also too late. I called Dr. Howell and read him the letter over the phone. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Sad, angry, relieved, confused, all of it at once. Do you want to respond?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to call her right now, tell her we can start over, but another part of me remembers the courtroom, remembers her trying to take away my freedom. How do I trust that this change is real?" "You can't," Dr. Howell said gently. "Not immediately. Trust has to be rebuilt over time through consistent action, not just words. The question is, are you willing to give her the opportunity to rebuild it?"
Sure, it's because you want to, not because you feel obligated. I kept the letter on my kitchen table for a week, reading it occasionally, letting it sit with me. I talked about it with James, with Helen, with Bill. Everyone had opinions, but ultimately, the decision was mine. On a cold December morning, I finally sat down and wrote my response. "Sarah, I received your letter. Thank you for your honesty and your apology. I believe you're sincere, and I'm glad you're making changes in your life. But I need you to understand that an apology doesn't erase what happened. You didn't just take my money. You tried to take my freedom. You tried to have me declared incompetent so you could control every aspect of my life. That's not something I can simply forgive and forget. However, I also recognize that people can change. I'm willing to consider the possibility of rebuilding our relationship, but it will take time, and it will have to happen on my terms. Here are my conditions. 1. We will communicate through letters initially. No phone calls, no visits, no pressure. 2. We will not discuss money, ever. If you bring up financial issues, I will end communication immediately. 3. You will respect my boundaries. If I say I'm not ready for something, you will accept that without argument. 4. If and when I'm ready to see Emma again, it will be on neutral ground with clear time limits. And 5, you will continue therapy. I need to see sustained change, not just temporary remorse. If you can accept these terms, we can begin the slow process of rebuilding trust. But Sarah, I need you to understand, I'm a different person now. I've built a life that doesn't revolve around you or Emma. I have friends, activities, purpose. I won't go back to being the father who sacrifices everything for you. That relationship is over. If you want a new relationship, one between 2 adults who respect each other, I'm willing to try. But it has to be real this time. No manipulation, no guilt trips, no financial pressure. Just honesty. The choice is yours. Dad. I mailed the letter and felt something shift in my chest. I wasn't slamming the door entirely, but I wasn't flinging it wide open either.
I was setting boundaries, protecting myself, and offering a conditional possibility. It felt right. Sarah's response came 2 weeks later. It was shorter than her first letter, but every word felt carefully chosen. Dad, I accept your terms. All of them. I understand this will be a long process, and I understand I have to earn back your trust. I've started seeing a therapist. Her name is Dr. Patricia Wells, and she's helping me understand the patterns of entitlement and manipulation I developed. It's painful work, but necessary. I won't ask for more than you're willing to give. Thank you for not closing the door completely. Sarah. Over the next months, we exchanged letters. They were careful, tentative things, Sarah updating me on her job and therapy, me sharing bits of my life, both of us avoiding anything too deep or too painful. In February, she sent photos of Emma. Not asking for anything, just sharing. Emma had lost her 2 front teeth and was grinning gap-toothed at the camera. The sight made my heart ache. In March, I wrote to Sarah and suggested we might meet for coffee. Neutral location, 1 hour, no Emma yet. She agreed immediately. We met at a cafe halfway between our homes. Sarah arrived early, looking nervous and older than I remembered. The past 6 months had changed her. There were lines on her face that hadn't been there before, a weariness that came from facing hard truths about yourself. "Hi, Dad," she said as I sat down across from her. "Sarah?" We ordered coffee and sat in awkward silence for a moment. She finally said, "You look good, healthy. I've been hiking a lot, made some new friends. It's been good for me." "I'm glad." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "Dad, I know I've said this already, but I need to say it in person. I'm sorry for all of it. I've spent 6 months in therapy unpacking how I became someone who could do what I did to you, and I still don't fully understand it, but I'm trying." "What has therapy taught you?" She thought a moment. "That I confused financial support with love, that I felt entitled to your help because you're my father without recognizing that I had responsibilities to you too, that I was terrified of facing my own failures, so I blamed you for cutting us off instead of admitting Kevin and I had made terrible financial decisions." "And Kevin, is he in therapy too?" "Yes, we're doing couples therapy as well. Our marriage was built on a foundation of your money, and when that disappeared, we had to figure out if there was anything real underneath. We're still figuring that out." We talked for exactly 1 hour, as I'd specified. It was stiff and uncomfortable, but it was also honest. When our time was up, Sarah stood and hesitated. "Can we do this again?" she asked. "Maybe. Let's see how this one sits with me first." She nodded, accepting the boundary without argument, and left. I sat there for a while longer, finishing my coffee, processing. It hadn't been a magical reconciliation, but it had been a start, a careful, boundaried, realistic start. Over the next year, Sarah and I slowly, incrementally, rebuilt something that resembled a relationship. We met for coffee monthly. She never asked for money. She respected every boundary I set. She sent updates about her life without expectation of support or advice. In therapy, Dr. Howell helped me navigate the complicated feelings. He reminded me, "You're allowed to have mixed emotions. You can be glad she's changing while also remaining cautious. You can love her while also protecting yourself." The first time I saw Emma again was at a park, 14 months after the trial. She was 6 now, and she ran to me with the unconscious joy of childhood. "Grandpa, I missed you so much." I held her tight, breathing in her strawberry shampoo, feeling tears prick my eyes. "I missed you too, sweetheart." We spent an hour together, Sarah, Emma, and me, feeding ducks and playing on the swings. It was nice. Simple, with no underlying tension about money or expectations. When our time was up, Emma hugged me goodbye. "When can I see you again, Grandpa?" I looked at Sarah, who looked back at me with a question in her eyes. "Soon," I said.
We'll see each other soon. It's been 2 years now since I cut off financial support. 2 years since I stood in my garden and decided to reclaim my life. Sarah and I have a relationship now. It's not the relationship I once imagined we'd have, and it's not the relationship we had before Margaret died. It's something new, more honest, more balanced, more real. We see each other regularly. We talk on the phone occasionally. She and Kevin are stable financially, living within their means, working hard. They've learned to stand on their own feet. Emma and I have a genuine relationship now, too. I take her to museums, we read books together, and she stays with me one weekend a month. She doesn't get expensive presents anymore. Instead, she gets time, attention, and real connection, and she seems happier for it. I still hike with my club every weekend. I still have coffee with Helen every Thursday. I still tend my garden, read my books, and volunteer in the community. I've traveled to Colorado 3 times to visit James. I'm planning a trip to Ireland for next spring. My life is full in a way it never was when I was constantly focused on Sarah's needs. I have purpose that doesn't depend on being useful to others. I have joy that doesn't come from sacrifice. I have peace that comes from knowing my worth isn't measured in dollars. The trust fund for Emma remains untouched. She'll get access at 25, and by then, I hope she'll be mature enough to use it wisely. But that's her future to navigate, not mine to control. Sarah sometimes says she wishes she'd understood sooner what she was doing to me. I tell her we can't change the past, only learn from it. The years we lost are gone, but we have the opportunity to build something better going forward. Some of my friends from the hiking club have asked if I regret cutting Sarah off so completely at first. The answer is complicated. I regret that it was necessary. I regret the pain it caused Emma. I regret the years we lost. But I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret learning my worth. I don't regret discovering that I could build a life that didn't revolve around being someone's financial support system. The restraining order was dropped after a year, once Sarah had demonstrated consistent respect for boundaries. The changes to my will remain in place. Sarah knows this and has never questioned it. "It's your money, Dad," she said when I told her about the charitable donations in my will. "You earned it. You should spend it however brings you peace." That acceptance, more than anything else, showed me she had genuinely changed. I'm 70 now. My hair is completely white now. My knees creak when I climb stairs, and I need reading glasses for everything. But I'm happier than I've been in a decade. Last week, Emma's school had a Grandparents' Day program. Both sets of grandparents were invited. I sat next to Kevin's parents, Patricia and Donald, and we watched Emma perform in a little play about community helpers. After the program, Patricia pulled me aside. She said, "Robert, I owe you an apology. 2 years ago, when Sarah asked me to support their case against you, I did it without question. I thought you were being cruel to cut them off. I didn't understand what had been happening. I'm sorry." I said, "Thank you for saying that." She said, "You taught us all an important lesson. Sometimes love means saying no. Sometimes helping means stepping back and letting people face consequences. I've applied that lesson with my other kids, too." I smiled. We all do what we think is right at the time. The important thing is we learn. That evening, I sat in my garden as the sun set, thinking about the journey of the past 2 years, about the money I'd given away and the freedom I'd gained, about the relationship I'd lost and the new one I'd built, about the man I'd been, desperate to be needed, willing to sacrifice anything for scraps of affection, and the man I'd become. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Emma can't stop talking about seeing you today. Thank you for being there. And Dad, thank you for not giving up on us completely, even when we deserved it." I replied, "Thank you for doing the work to become someone I can have a real relationship with. I'm proud of you." And I meant it. Not proud of who she'd been, but proud of who she'd chosen to become. The stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere Margaret was watching, I like to think. And maybe she was proud too. Proud that I'd finally learned the lesson she tried to teach me before she died. That love without respect isn't love at all. And that the most important person I needed to take care of was myself. I went inside, made a cup of tea, and sat down with the book I was reading for next week's book club meeting. My life was quiet, simple, and entirely my own. And it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? How did you navigate the balance between love and self-protection? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you're facing a similar situation, remember this: you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Your worth is not measured in your usefulness to others. And choosing yourself is not selfish. It's survival. Thank you for reading my story. Until next time.